hi everybody. I'm going to read and possibly use this. Is it on? Yeah. No. Yeah. So, one of the main aesthetics of Orphan Drift has been something we call machine vision. Orphan Drift has courted diverse forms of alien alterity in an attempt to imagine or conjure possible embodiments and forms of consciousness. It conceives the glitch, the distorted effect of technological mediation or machine vision, as a generative disturbance which comprises the strict boundaries between matter and spirit, history and myth, to produce fluidities which Orphan Drift takes up and cultivates in its work as sites of becoming and radical change. Machine vision has to be fluid. Liquidity is the medium for mesmerism, reality bleeds, infection, technogenesis, technosentience, flows, folds and coalescences. So the machine vision aesthetic describes magnetic oceans, permeable thresholds between the concrete and the virtual, invisible currents and currencies affecting the visible, cosmic and geological timescales, communication currents in vibrant matter that become effective frequencies in our habitats and fantasies, futurity impacting on the present and its hyperobjects, conversations between organic and machinic processes. Orphan Drift is a fluid or opportunistic entity. The trajectories fuse, feedback and intermingle. Much of the recent work revolves around uncertainty and destabilization, the unstatic condition of contemporary life, the uprooting and spreading of visual matter and information. Orphan Drift affects through encounters with speculative narrative, literary, journalistic, popular and data-driven, ecology, distributed, expansive time-travelling bodies, the quantum universe and a meeting of ancient cosmologies, presence and futurity, and the unknown and the resistance to explaining it away. I'm very inspired by this quote from Donna Haraway's Staying with the Trouble from 2016. The tentacular ones feel, make attachments and detachments, make cuts and knots, make a difference, weave paths and consequences, but not determinisms. The tentacular are not disembodied figures. They are human, jellyfish, fibrous, microbial, fungal, rooted, tendrilled. Also neural nets and networks, clouds and interlaced electronica, collectively producing systems that do not have self-defined spatial or temporal boundaries. The systems are evolutionary and have capacity for surprising change. So I'm showing two videos. Miasma, which is about 15 minutes, part of Res Gallery's 2018 Alembic 3-part exhibition. And then I'll talk a bit about that. And then after that, If AI Were Cephalopod, which is 11 minutes and has just closed at Telematic Gallery in San Francisco. So just one thing to say about Miasma first, is it's inspired by failed water hyacinth terraform experiments in Cape Town's Edgeland waterways, and by Reza Negrestani and Mark Fisher's article, Trash Streams, Wasteland, for CMT 2012 Spectral. And they write, Xenocommunications, communication or data traffic based on the plane of being opened by instead of being open to. People are investigating the autopoetic network culture of trash or human dependency on non-human communication clusters. The material landscape and its currents, the dark and vibrant matters, themselves become active agents in our habitats. The opposition of crystallization and glassy immobility defines the end or a new beginning, untrammeled, autonomous proliferation. So the idea here was a synthetic environment that gradually overlays a decaying urban hinterland. It's an encounter between different kinds of alive, where virtual, synthetic and urban edgeland worlds combine. I was thinking about how sludge and toxic waste have emerged into the collective consciousness, profoundly disturbing a boundary breach, revealing the frailty of our economic, social and symbolic orders. Waste is becoming elemental, and as slime has generative potential, microorganisms, viruses and bacteria that provoke change in their environments, crossing into and out of the human body and traversing synthetic virtual thresholds. Here, an androgynous swamp demon oversees the synthetic transformation of the collaged liminal landscapes. This spectral creature is calling forth an entropic ritual breakdown and a spiralling positive feedback loop that generates endless blooms to clog both the liquid and data channels, triggering transformation into the virtual. Slime is released into fantastical form. Colour is very important in miasma. Jerome Cohen writes in Prismatic Ecology of a restless expanse of multi-hued contaminations, impurities, hybridity, monstrosity, contagion, interruption, enmeshment, refraction, unexpected relations, and wonder. So this is wondering about the uncanny alienness of pollutants and chemicals. The research involved formal, aesthetic, technical and theoretical exploration into the mediums of LiDAR 3D scan animation, Google Deep Dream coding and data moshing or algorithmic perturbation. Initially my interest in Deep Dream and data mosh was about using digital image glitching as aesthetics for decay and liquefaction. And as always with my work and central to Orphan Drift's machine vision, digital processing becomes the unknown operators that decenter and destabilize the certainty of the human gaze. And then becoming metaphors for destabilizing our behavioral certainties or catalysts for entanglement, mimesis and immersion. In both videos I've been collaborating with Jason Stapleton, who's the co-founder of Light Farm, an audiovisual project exploring LiDAR as an emerging artistic medium. So LiDAR scanning, which is used for automatic cars and architectural projections to entice clients into visualizing what could be from a building site. In medical work, it's massively iterative. Spinning 40. Oh, and it was that machine that you saw early in the video. A spinning 45-degree mirror directs a laser in scanning arcs, repeated up to 1 million times a second. The inherent dimensional fabric of LiDAR captured data can present haunting distortions of form and space. They're a little bit difficult to see just now because the room is quite light, so you didn't get the high contrast of the black on the white point clouds. The viewer has the tactile sensation of travelling into the back face of an animation. We experience the inner surface of a thing and the negative space between things, as if seeing into matter. We look into and out of the digital information that cloaks us in a white point cloud, which passes overhead and towards the point of vision. We are disorientated by our position and cannot decipher edges, as they appear to fragment into the black abyss beyond, ideally. I'm excited by depth becoming transparent, so that the viewer is suddenly inside the turning landscape, object or event, looking out from inside a virtual skin that is not theirs. Throughout Miasma, LiDAR is used to transition from filmed real landscape into virtual dimensions. Particular locations were filmed and scanned simultaneously, so that the LiDAR, as well as Deep Dream and data moshed versions, could be layered to produce the breakdown and transformation of matter. In this work, machine vision generates some kind of topographical anomaly where becoming other is glimpsed at a quantum level. Both videos are built on fictions that imagine becoming other, whether synthetic matter or octopus in the next one. In Donna Haraway's SF Notebooks for Documenta 13, she writes, "Overcome your ontological fear of the alien and suspicion of the mixed. They are positioned against the Enlightenment's disenchantment of the world, that calamitous diminishment of the world's significance. And again in staying with the trouble, there is no guarantee of safety from or harmony with any of the other. The tentacular ones make attachments and detachments, make cuts and knots, weave paths and consequences, but not determinisms." I've read that. Excuse me. The systems are, but she continues, the systems are evolutionary and have capacity for surprising change. Out of this porous, tissued and open-edged, damaged, continuing world. She talks about speculative investigations that become propositions, that become paradigm shifts, and this is one of the powers of science fiction. Thinking outside in with visceral sensing, and then began my obsession with the octopus. I wrote Octagon, a fiction, in which a generative adversarial neural net is attracted to merge with an octopus, recognizing an embodied consciousness compatible with its own. So the most recent Orphan Drift video, If AI Were Cephalopod, is based on this text. It conceives of consciousness as not only more artificial, more technologically distorted and dispersed than commonly understood, but also as more rooted in the body and the sensuousness of the flesh. There's a focus on octopus intelligence across several fields of research at the moment. It is a distributed consciousness, a way into imagining machine learning. The design philosopher Betty Marenko writes, "Myth-making devices and defamiliarization techniques can be deployed as acts of resistance against digital capture so that new forms of pattern divination may occur. Polymorphic, elusive, imitative, the other side of the digital is the octopus. In researching octopus, it seems that in evolutionary terms, their intelligence is an anomaly. The octopus is something to teach us about the limits of our own understanding." So let's do the second film. Another thing with the light in here is you can't really read those texts, but they say things like, if AI were cephalopod, it would be 500 million years old, or if AI were cephalopod, it would see with its skin, or if AI were cephalopod, it would adapt to its surroundings and shape-shift across the environment. And some of these things are attributes of the octopus, but also resonate with the kind of fears and fascination we have at the moment with the potentials of artificial intelligence. So it's this kind of refrain that moves across the screens. So yeah, we constructed a narrative that assembled the 4 videos in a repeating colour sequence using a mood diagram we developed after researching the unique colour language that octopuses use to communicate and respond to their environment. So it's thought that the warm white skin means the octopus is calm, orange is curious, red, purple, bright blue and alizarin crimson convey excitement, fear or anger. Red and white project excitement in red to potential mate, whilst the white other half faces any rival male. And cold white signifies a dying octopus. Last in the sequence is chroma chatter, a term used to describe the fast psychedelic flow of many different colours across the skin. And this, when most electric, is a display mode showing off. The more fluid, mesmeric colour flows, researchers are thinking of perhaps a stream of consciousness or an octopus talking to itself, which is all anthropocentric modes, but it's amazing to imagine into colour as that level of language. LiDAR's used slightly differently here in that it needed to suggest infinitely complex information processing and multisensory mapping of the environment by an entity. So we never see a filmed version of moving through, for example, a cave interior. As the octopus AI habitat, it only exists as point clouds. And later, when LiDAR scans are portraying the imagined shapes of an AI becoming cephalopod, it's partly point cloud, partly wireframe, and partly sculptural, with a luminous synthetic skin. We zoomed into the point cloud recordings drastically in order to find strange possible octopoid shapes emerging from alien terrains. All of the LiDAR forms in If AI Were Cephalopod coalesce out of the cave scans. Isolated and animated, they become revolving entities in a different kind of alive. The work presents a lot of questions about the formation of the notion of intelligence. Where does the model of intelligence come from in relation to the development of AI? And what are the implications of those choices? Particularly in the texts, which I'm sorry you couldn't see properly, the work ultimately suggests we may not know what we're doing in creating these systems. So some of the texts suggest threat, while others are more about unknowing or advancing embodiment or sensuality as worthy aspects of intelligence. There should be a kind of mirroring experience, where the work can be read as being directed at AI or directed at the way human exceptionalism limits understanding of ourselves in relation to other life forms. Rather than referencing an octopus-like AI that has the ability to survey and implement predictive analytics, we're inspired by a generative adversarial neural net reinforced learning model, whereby the algorithm learns from its environment rather than learns to match human input data with a socio-political analytic agenda. So, meaning our imagining into the octopus's distributed consciousness is underpinned by a desire to resist the evolution of AI as a surveying and predictive modelling tool, rather to embrace the plastic, opportunistic, fluid, protean otherness embodied by the octopus. The deliberate uncertainty of figure, ground, planes, frames and image relationships in the work is an attempt to give the viewer an embodied and perceptual experience that's fluid, unfixed and morphing. Reviewing both The Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery and Other Minds, The Evolution of Intelligent Life by Peter Godfrey Smith, Amir Srinivasan writes, "In evolutionary terms, octopuses are the closest we can come on Earth to knowing what it might be like to encounter alien intelligence. Mutual intelligibility is currently impossible. Such otherness holds up a mirror to teach us about the limits of our own understanding and embodiment. The majority of the octopus's neurons exist outside its brain, Its arms have more neurons than its brain, about 10,000 neurons per sucker. The arms can taste and smell and exhibit short-term memory. The octopus is, phenomenologically speaking, in a hybrid situation. Its arms are partly self and partly other, which is why it's being called an embodied cognition. The octopus navigates in volume, absorbing and siphoning its environment into and through its body in order to move. In Vampirothesis Infernalis, a treatise, Willem Flusser writes, "Its world is constituted as a dynamic conglomerate. There are no immutable forms, and its impressions are of the plasticity of forms and sensation." Flusser talks of its volatile immanence. Its legendary camouflaging techniques enable the sender to become invisible to its receiver. The messenger is concealed and the message abstract. The amorphous clouds of ink secreted conceal its passing, ephemeral again. With our new media, we're evolving electromagnetic intersubjective and immaterial communication. Flusser terms the information age an octopoid revolution. The sciences must be harnessed to develop fabulous tentacles with which to feel the vampirothesis and its almost mythical model of life's possibilities. At some point, as machines merge with organic life, it will be possible to create an artificial octopus and a human-octopus hybrid, I'm hoping. To glimpse both sides of this emergence simultaneously means merging with one's opposite, the self distributed between two facing mirrors. So, animal and artificial, a consciousness beyond human understanding. It's neither strictly natural nor cultural, neither merely organic nor technological. It's an embodied intelligence, a consciousness encoded in the flesh and the metabolism of its surroundings. It understands through touch and speaks in radiating colours through a semaphore of the skin. Its strangeness is somehow familiar. At once more ancient and more sophisticated than we are, it's an evolutionary revenant, an alternative variation on the nervous system that still inhabits our bodies, as well as an avatar of the post-human future. This is Clark Buckner, who's the director of Telematic Gallery, where that was shown. Drawing upon recent work in embodied cognitive science and radical anthropology, Orphan Drift effectively asks what paradigm of intelligence do we presuppose in the development of artificial intelligence. It is not perhaps a mistake at this juncture to privilege the human on account of its rational self-consciousness. Might it not be better, more appropriate, to imagine the intelligence of machines in the light of what we now recognize as the remarkably complex cognition of other creatures? What alternative forms of experience and perception are revealed in doing so? And if intelligence is so understood, is human cognition not perhaps already more distributed than sometimes supposed, involving neither merely mind nor brain, but effects and intensities across the surfaces of the body and even the external world? Orphan Drift poses these questions not only to the future, but also to the world in which we live. The promise of the new, the different, the artist postulates with its sublime kraken, ultimately lies not in the capacity of engineers to automate learning processes or anything else, but in our capacity to open ourselves to, even to cultivate, the alien other already in our midst. So just some final words strung together. Seeing into matter, iteration, synthetic information terrains, incoming, haptic space, folds, dark matter, proliferation, singularity, immersion, shadow objects, non-human cartographies, point clouds, uncanny particle life, uncertainty, afterimage, plastic swarms, incandescence, expansion, artificial colour, contactable abstract matter, cascades, breaches, maelstroms, inceptionism, tightening spirals, black box mode, haunting distortions of form and space, the inner surface, contagion, the centre falls away, entirely feasible consciousness utterly inaccessible to human experience, saturation, cognitive dissonance, elastic time, shapeshifters, viscosity, a high tolerance for chaos, curious hunger, hunting in dreams, unfix, vivid intimacy, elusive, imitative, polymorphous. Wake up, slip out of your point of view, creative, chaotic, radical, uncompressed, fluid, plastic, surplus, glitching, sometimes violent, always contingent, random, becoming touch.